my god. Do you
Yeah.
what exactly do you teach?
I teach English language arts to seventh graders and ninth graders.
Is that something that like you just did as like a light like for like your career, or do you just kind of bumble into that just randomly once?
No, I was strategic about it, I guess you could say. Um,
Okay.
I worked, yeah, I worked in a book publishing company for many years, and then I decided to become a teacher, and then I worked, did my certification or my master's degree so I could become a teacher, and then that was it.
It's not, you know, it's weird because we think of teaching as it is. It's something that's very much needed and necessary because it's not only like education, it's also shaping and molding people, especially like you're talking about
Mhm.
like seventh or eighth grade. Like, you know, sometimes
Mhm.
teachers can make and break people. They can leave memories. Like, I can tell you the honest truth. Like, I remember some teachers that like literally left a mark with me. And you definitely are
Mhm.
a creative person from what I like the little bit that I've like got to know you. And I think that is an amazing balance, right? Because not only are you putting yourself in a place that's definitely stressful, you gotta deal with kids. You know, let's be honest, like they're not always the easiest. They're kind of a little bitchy
No, they're
sometimes.
not.
And
Yeah.
I think that's really amazing. I really think that shows like not only a true sense of character, but also of how much you're able to accomplish. Because, like you said, it's something that you definitely did strategize. Like you definitely thought
Mhm.
about the pros and the cons that come with it.
Yeah. 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 I feel like there are times when being a teacher is really, really gratifying. There are
Yeah.
other times when it's just so challenging that I wonder if it's even worth it. There have been times when I've really decided I'm done with this. I'm done with teaching. And then there are other times when I'm like, no, let me just stick it out. There are some good kids out there. It's a challenge all around.
And not always is it awarding, right? You know, we can talk about also how even it's similar how teaching and writing kind of have like the same thing in that sense where you don't necessarily feel that gratification. You know, a lot of the times you
Hmm.
get that negativity, you know, things are not going the way that you want or something's not planned, but there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the background. Like people are still being inspired, people are still learning things, but not always are you in that scope or aware of that. Um,
Hmm.
I'm young, like I'll tell you this straight up, like I struggle with this terribly. I think a lot of artists, I think a
Hmm.
lot of creator people or even educators run into this, but I think
Hmm.
it's a real thing that you need to be able to grapple on, to be able to handle all of it.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. It is a challenge, and you have to continuously, I guess, make sure that you inspire yourself. You make sure that
Yeah.
you keep yourself grounded. Yeah, I think that's important.
It's also like it also ties into also like well-being, right? Because a lot of the times we get into our own heads in the sense where we think that we're not deserving, you know, or we haven't worked hard enough, or you know, there's something that we're doing wrong. And our mind has a very powerful way of convincing us of things that are completely not true. You know, where
Mm.
people around us can see how much we're doing and how much of the things that we're benefiting others, you know, all the things that we come. Because
Mm.
again, like these are things that you're passionate about. These are things that you want to,
Mm.
especially when it comes to writing, especially when it comes to drawing, especially when it comes to making music or films. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's your mind. It's your mind that's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful that does that shit to you, which I don't know. How have you been able to deal with that? I'm just curious.
Well, so you know that you probably know from what you read about me that I have suffered with depression, and so that's my
Yeah.
mind, you know,
Yeah.
really causing me to feel negativity about myself and about the things that I'm doing. And a few of the things that I have found that worked for me, I found it completely by accident. My cousins and and my sister and I are very close, and we are always challenging each other. We're always hanging around each other. And one year, I don't even know why we decided to do this, but we decided to challenge ourselves with working out every day. And then that turned into, what meditations are you doing and what's working for you. And then we started reading books, self-help books together and discussing them and actually going through the process of changing ourselves based on the self-help books. And I found that all of those combined together really helped me change my mindset, along with some other things like positive motivational videos and all that. And so all of that helped me have a mindset shift, because as you were saying before, our minds are really powerful
They
in
are.
that in the way that we think about ourselves and the negativity and all that. And so I did a number of these different things completely by accident. I wasn't strategizing like, okay, let me do this so that I can combat depression. I was just doing it because, hey, my cousins and my sister were doing it, so let me do it too. And then it happened to help me with my feelings of negativity and my depression. And I was just like, hey, I found something here. That was kind of cool.
I think it's something really interesting, right? Because we live in a period where we had a pandemic and isolation became a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have forgotten that many of the ways that we've been able to heal and sometimes get out of our shell and be able to grow as individuals is to have those other people around us. Like you said, being able to have like a cousin or having a sister or just even really, really close friends, somebody that you could
Mm-hmm.
talk to, you can confide in, and they could say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I tried this. You want to try it out?" And open your eyes to new possibilities. Because let's be honest, like you're limited in your own scope. You see things through your own narrative, your own direction. Other people maybe be
Absolutely.
able to pick up on things differently than you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A different perspective is always beneficial, right? And but they also have to be on the same page as you, right? You
Yeah.
can't be somebody who's looking to change your life in one specific way, and somebody else they have a different perspective of it, but their different perspective is going against what you want to do. So you have to be careful with that as well, right?
Yeah, especially. I mean, because look, for myself, right, where I definitely have had a lot of trauma. I came from a pretty difficult upbringing. For me to sit next to somebody that came from a pretty cushy background, somebody that was maybe raised in an upper class family where parents are financially stable, they're constantly giving them money, like they're 16, they bought them a brand new car, the whole deal, right? Does that make them a bad person? No, absolutely not. Can I be friends with them? 100%. But to your point, right? There's certain things that I cannot relate to them. Like, if they try to give me advice about mental health and depression, I'm not gonna, like belittle them, but I'm gonna be like, we're on two different levels over here, man. Like, my
Mm.
traumas and things are very different than yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think being able to connect with somebody, relate to somebody, is extremely important when it comes to seeking advice and seeking mentorship, seeking um, any kind of help. I think you have to feel like you relate to that person. If you don't, it's not really going to do much for you. You probably, just like you said, you're not going to be able to really take them seriously with what it is that they're trying to help you with.
Yeah. I mean, especially when it comes to also cultural classes. In the
Mm-hmm.
sense where, right, like I'm originally from New York and I live down here in South Florida, and something that you tend to run into is a lot of the times people come from different countries. Like they'll either come from
Mm-hmm.
like Haiti or Puerto Rico or Jamaica or Trinidad. Like from the Caribbeans,
Mm-hmm.
and they have very different culture than you do. Like, yeah, we're all living here in America, and yet America's immigrants and a melting pot, but there's that too, right? So a lot of the times where there are things that you can relate on, but they're also coming from their own culture. Like I know, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like when you deal with Haitian culture, a lot of the times, like speaking out and being aware of mental health is sometimes not something that's very well discussed. So sometimes when you're
Yeah.
able to, like, I'm in vocational school and I'm able to talk with these guys, they are able to open up and they feel that because they haven't had
Mhm.
that their whole life. They have people now that they can
Mhm.
be around that gives that to them. Again, that
Mhm.
new
Mhm.
idea of being able to explore and open up your perspective.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. I happen to be Haitian American, and
There you go.
yeah, I completely hear what you're saying because the cultures are so different. They
Yeah.
look at mental health differently. They look at a whole bunch of different aspects differently.
Yeah.
And if you are trying to have a discussion with them based on that, and you have very two opposing viewpoints, it's hard to come to terms with whatever it is that they're talking about. You just have to agree to disagree and just, keep it moving.
I think also a lot of the times, right, when you deal with a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression, especially when you're around people. Because I'll be honest, like sometimes people are very intimidating. People make nonverbal gestures and you don't know exactly what they mean. Sometimes people don't respond the way that you want them to respond, right? They say something and then
Mm-hmm.
your mind is going all over the place. I feel being able to educate yourself and having a little bit more understanding of other people, it allows you to have that zen, that relaxed state of I'm not going to take everything in so full-hearted. I'm going to take everything in slowly and gradually and kind of take it as it is because what
Mm-hmm.
you end up doing is you're hurting yourself. You're not benefiting
Mm-hmm.
yourself in any shape or form. You're just going to
Mm-hmm.
constantly then want to be like I don't want to go out. I'm going to do DoorDash and play video games and lock my door and be gone for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a healthy way of doing things, taking it as it comes to you, and perhaps even if it's something that you don't understand, looking it up. I mean, we have such easy access to information these days. You could always look something up if you don't understand it
Crazy.
and
Yeah.
educate yourself a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
I think also everything like we've also discussed, and I think like you're definitely the right person to talk to about this. Is we tend to tend to think that we're alone in a lot of things, and it's true. Like a lot of the times in life, like you are alone. Like you have to be able to be independent and be able to make your own choices and things. But I think also being aware and understanding that not having people in your life is not healthy. I think it's one of the leading causes to why so many people are mentally sick.
Right. I can certainly attest to the fact that I would not be where I am right now if it were not for the people that stuck by me. Um,
Yeah.
you definitely do need people in your life. I was very depressed at one point, and I just kept to myself. And the only person who really understood the extent of my depression was my sister, and even her, I kept out of my world at some point when I was just all by myself and just wanting to sort of wallow in my sadness, in my depression. And it wasn't until, she's the one who sought therapy for me. She's the one who was just like, you need to get out of this funk. That's when that's when I pulled myself out. So if it wasn't for her, if it weren't for her, then I it would have probably taken me a much longer time to get out of the depression that I was in. We definitely need other people. We definitely need other people in our lives. I completely agree with you on that.
100%. I think also what's interesting, right? A lot of the times, and I've just noticed this as an artist, a lot of artists definitely can have like trauma or, like you said, deal with a lot of times very difficult things. And then a lot of times what flourishes out of there is the artistry. Do you feel
Mm.
like in your case with your book and with your writing, do you think that that's the product that came out of it? Or do you think that was just a longer road somewhere else?
Well, I've always been a writer, even before I realized that I was a writer. And one of the things, like I was suffering with depression in my early 20s, even before that, and I didn't even realize what it was. People weren't talking about it as much back then. And one of the things that I did in order to sort of understand what I was going through was I started writing about it. I created a female protagonist who was going through the same issues because I didn't know what I was dealing with, so I called them issues. Who was going through the same issues as I was, and I didn't really know where the story was going until I was finally diagnosed with depression, and I was like, okay, that's what my main character has. She has depression, and that's what I did some research on it. I used my own experience and how I felt during my depressive states in order to create my main character and to create her struggles. And so, yeah, my novel is a direct result of what I experienced as a depressive, and I just did a bunch of research so that I could make sure that it was as accurate as it can be. So
I really love
yeah.
I really love that because I've had other authors on that are also teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I've noticed, especially with teachers, a lot of the times you can feel limited and underappreciated. Because let's be honest, like a lot of places in this country, teachers are not paid well, and they're not treated
Right.
to the best standards. Like a lot of the times, teachers will try to talk to the principal or talk to education, like, "Hey, can we get some changes?" Yeah, 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 yeah. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing. We're waiting for the budget to be updated. Yada, yada, yada. It's just the same
Mm.
bullshit over and over again, you know. And then again, like in a way, teaching is a type of craftsmanship. Like there's an artistry that comes to it, and when you love
Mm-hmm.
language and you love being able to be creative, and then trying to figure out what the hell is going on in your brain, and just to be able to write down, create a protagonist, like create a story around it. That to me is
Mm-hmm.
like, that's real art. That's coming from a real place. That's coming from like a need of like, I I, I need to do something with this. What do I do? I
Right.
throw it on
Right.
pages.
Yeah. 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 For me, writing was also something that helped me.
Like a
As I said
therapy.
before, it helped me understand. Well, yeah, it was like my therapy, right? I felt like, as I wrote down what I was feeling, I just let it all down on the page, and it, freed myself of the what I call the depression monster. And
I
as
love
far
that.
as yeah, things, and as far as teaching is concerned, it could definitely be something that's frustrating that could add to the depression, you know. And we just have to find ways of coping, right? I found some ways to cope with depression, and on a yearly basis I find ways to cope with teaching and the things that we have to deal with as teachers. Yeah. Uh-oh. Are we stuck?
Right? You know what though? It's also about like it's also about the awareness side of it too, because I feel like there's always this push of progression, right? That we need better education in this country. We need to better ourselves for the future generations and for the kids and yada yada. But yet, it's the little things that nobody talks about. It's the fact that you have an education system that is
Mm.
just non appreciative to the people that are putting in the work. Yes, there are a lot of teachers that should not be teaching. I 100% agree with, like, I've had plenty of those. I think we both have plenty of those. But I think there are amazing and
Yes,
fantastic and
absolutely.
creative teachers like yourself, right? That deserve, let's be honest, like deserves better, like deserves to be able to like, hey, I have a real story. I am really passionate. I'm really creative. I'm a really good writer. I'm able to make a story, you know? I think
Hmm.
that this is what's important if we're going to talk about our education, if we're going to talk about mental health, if we're going to talk about people. Because this is where it starts. This is not where it ends or where it begins.
It's interesting because I feel like I used to talk to students, talk to my students a lot more about, different issues in my life, different things in my life. They all know that about my sister, about, the things that I do outside of school, right? I shared with them, right? And I think that's important that you share with your students. They know a little bit more about you as a person, as a human being. But
You feel more human.
I feel like yeah, you feel more human at that point. But as I got on to my later years as a teacher, I don't share as much with them anymore about my life. And I think that's because teaching has gotten to the point where it's so structured, at least in my school, where it's so structured that you have to do certain things and you have to cover certain areas. And I don't always feel like I'm the teacher that I was many years ago when I first started, because I feel like I have to teach to the test. I have to do this, and I have to have this by a certain amount of time, and I have to have. I don't know. It just feels like I'm not as giving of myself as a teacher as I used to be, and that kind of bothers me. And I'm trying to find ways around that. You know.
It's hard because, what gets forgotten is you have this whole system that's working against you. And,
Mm.
a lot of the times you could use the excuse as the whole country, but the simple fact is that even by county, state by state, across this nation, this has been an ongoing issue for many, many years, in the fact that you cannot restrict education. You cannot rule and command education. The whole idea is you're supposed to create a strong future generation. How are you supposed to do it if you're limiting people to do... Like, I'll give you a great example, right? We're talking about the arts, we're talking about being creative. If you try to do the stuff that they do in the education system to the music sector, nobody'd be listening to music. You'd have songs that'd be exactly 2 minutes and 50 seconds. They'd have to have the exact same set of words. They can't have certain words because otherwise it's out of context, or it's what's the word? It's uncomfortable, or it's unsettling. It's not it just goes on and on and on and on, and then it's enough. That in itself is limiting. It's not benefiting you. It's not benefiting your students. It's not benefiting anybody. It's making people money, maybe. I don't know. I'm not in that department.
I don't know. There are so many teachers out there who think outside the box and who get very, very creative with their students, and who really raise the bar. And then I don't really feel like I fall into that category per se, and I'm not trying to
You
put
don't have
myself down
to.
or anything, but I
No.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like sometimes I'm so overwhelmed that I'm just like, I'm gonna do the bare minimum, you know. And that's so sad to hear. But that again, there's
That's
the
okay.
problem with the education system, the way that the teachers are expected to do so much with the little amount of time that they have to do it in. We are there to create lesson plans and follow through with the lesson plans. Know all the students. Know who are the students who are sick, who need to visit the nurse's office. Know which students are the ones who have IEPs, and we have to contact parents if the students are missing, if the students are absent, if the students are not doing well. Then we have to. It's a constant thing, and it gets very, very overwhelming very, very quickly. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, therein
You
lies
know
the
what though?
problem.
You bring up something that's really true, which is where you cannot expect other people to solve the problem for you. And the idea is like, you don't need to add another 40,000 jobs just to fix the problem. That's not how you fix issues. You don't add more people to fix a problem. I think what it comes down to is clarity and understanding. In the simple context of your job is there to be an educator. That's it. Like, the job is just to be an educator. You're there to educate. End of story. Being able to add all of these other things in there, it's like, wait, hang on a minute. If we have to add all of these things on, maybe we got to rethink this a little bit. You know what?
Right.
It's the same idea with it's the same idea with writing, right? You're writing a story, you get up to chapter, let's just say chapter 7, and then you're like, hey, hang on one minute. I'm getting overwhelmed over here. Now I got to start adding all this. Maybe I need to restructure this a little bit. Maybe I need to go back. There's always a solution, but if you're just going to keep on throwing tools, you just throw everything you can out of the toolbox at it. You're not solving it. You're just overwhelming everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of teachers are feeling overwhelmed these days. But I mean, we just do the best that we can. That's all. Just do the best we can.
But I think it's You know what, though? I think it's really amazing that even through all of that, you're able to still write. You're still being able to be able to do something for yourself. I think that's also something to really take into account on how strong people can be. Even if you can't change the voice, or if you can't go viral, and you can't get 100,000 people champing along with you to the rally. If you're able to make those triumphs for yourself, I think that's the most important thing. Like, as long as you're able to do that, you're able to continue that I think is the most important thing.
For a very long time, every year the school year is in session, I actually neglect a lot of my own things, like doctor's appointments, my writing, taking care of my house. I neglect all these things because the school year is so overwhelming for me. I mean, I'm not going to speak for every teacher, but that's just the way that it is for me. And it's only since, I believe, last year where I finally said to myself, okay, I am going to take some time out during the week, every week, so that I can devote to my writing, because I cannot let my job as a teacher sort of infiltrate my home, where I cannot spend any time at home doing my own things. It can't only be lesson planning and grading and all that. So yeah,
you have to be your own self.
Oh yeah, you have to be your own self. You have to take time for the things that you love, the things that nurture you, the things that bring you life, because it cannot be only about the job, or else you'll die a little bit inside. You can't have that.
I'll tell you something, like, the amount of people that I've ran into, either maybe in person or over the phone, that are older, in their 60s and 70s, and have taken that route, burn themselves out, just keep to the grind. They are some of the most nastiest, most angry, most negative people you'll ever meet in your life. And then you have the opposite people, which they struggled, but they still did the things that they loved. Like you said, finding time to be able to do their own passions. And they're some of the most fun 70-year-old, 80-year-olds you'll ever be around, because they still stuck to themselves. They still believed in themselves. Even if they're not famous, even if they're living in a 55-plus tired, who cares? They're still happy. They love life, because at least they accomplished something.
Yes, absolutely.
That I think is so important.
Agree with that. Yeah, because if you do the things that you love, you will be happy with yourself, right?
Even when you're older,
I should say.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredibly important.
It's so important. You know what, though? Like, I think with all the time that, even being able to speak with you, I think something that is really a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. Life isn't supposed to be easy. It was never designed to be easy. If you look at nature and the way that things correlate with one another, how you have prey and predators, and how even nature itself can be so devastating. I think what we can learn from all of this, that even if life is full of struggles and is not perfect and it comes with its obstacles, I think that is the very nature of why we love life. Because if everything was perfect, if everything was a utopian, you'd have no drive. There'd be no purpose to do anything.
Right. It would actually be quite dull. We need variety in all sorts of ways, right?
We need pain. We need a lot of pain. It's just horrible to say, but it's kind of true. It's like, I tell you, like, some of the most amazing people I have been around are some of the most traumatized, some of the most fucked up people you'll ever meet in your life. And they are very resilient, and sometimes the most positive and most outgoing people, because, like, they've seen the dark shit, and they say to themselves, you know what? Been there, done that, ain't doing it again. Like, if I have to live on ramen and ketchup, that's fine.
Well, the pain helps us with our perspective, and it helps us to see what we don't want in our lives, and it helps to strive. It helps us strive towards bettering ourselves. So that's it's necessary for us to feel pain in order to become better human beings, I think.
I know, and it's a hard thing to tell people because who wants to go through pain? But it's true. I think
Yeah.
if you're constantly cushioned, if you're constantly being comforted and you're constantly being
Mm-hmm.
blanketed, I mean, how much can you possibly grow? How much can you actually
Right.
be, a
Mm-hmm.
responsible partner? How could you be a responsible person?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely agree. We need that contrast. We need that contrast. It helps us as human beings.
And I know that constantly, we talk about the future generations of people that are coming after us. But I think that's something that we forget, right? A lot of the times, the things that we do, the conversations that we have, the things that we write, the things that we make, it's not always for us now. It's sometimes for the people that come after us, and
Mm.
I don't think that's a bad attitude to have. I
Mm-mm.
think if we don't allow there to be a better path for the future generation, for them to be better people, then how are we bettering ourselves as a society? How are we bettering our own communities? I mean, do we really want to grow up another generation that deal with severe depression, anxiety, isolation
Mm-hmm.
issues, like
Mm-hmm.
problems communicating? I mean, come
Right.
on, these are basic skills.
And the thing is, I think that all of these issues that you just mentioned are being talked about so much more now than they have in the past.
Yeah.
So I think we're along the right path. If people are talking about it, people are acknowledging it, people are putting it at the forefront, and people are making time for themselves and creating, um, they're creating barriers. They're creating not barriers. What am I trying to say? They're letting people know what they will stand up for. They're letting people know what they will not allow. I think we're along the right path as opposed to 20, 30 years ago when people weren't talking about this.
I think also the internet really opens up the doors because I could tell you my own experience, like talking with some of these 4, 5, even 7, 8, even 9, 10 year olds. Jeez Louise, the stuff that they ask, I'm like, I would have never asked that when I was a kid. But they have
Mm,
the internet and they're so aware that
yeah.
it, they start asking questions. And I sit there
Mm-hmm.
in awe because, like, to me, that is amazing. Because then you have a 7 year old where you do have, like, let's be honest, you have those educators which they try to like push the agenda and the bullshit, and then you have these kids who are like, hey, hang on a minute, but my parents know people like that, but they're not like that at all. And then they
Mm,
start putting things together, and then they go on their phone. They know how to use their phone really well. And they go on YouTube and
yeah. Yeah. Of
ChatGPT
course.
and
Mm-hmm.
and they come up, they figure out and come up. So maybe in a way that we're creating a generation of problem solvers. They can be more complex at problem solving than we can, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I guess they are coming up as problem solvers in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, I happen to be a little bit afraid for this current generation that's in school now because of everything that is at their fingertips. As a teacher this year, I found that a lot of students were using ChatGPT to answer questions, to hand in essays, as opposed to doing the work on their own, which only lends to the fact that they are not thinking on their own, and I'm afraid that we are teaching or trying to teach youngsters who will not know how to think for themselves. So, problem solvers, I'm hoping that you are right, that we are seeing a number of problem solvers coming up, but I also see students who are taking the lazy route and not thinking, not using their thinking skills in order to write down an essay, write down an answer to a question. So I'm kind of afraid for this generation that's growing up
And
now.
it's interesting you mentioned that because you, it's 7th and 8th grade, right? Or
Seventh and ninth graders.
7th and ninth, and you're talking like that's also English, which is
Mm-hmm. It's all about interpretation. It's
yeah.
all about looking at something on the page, looking at the deeper aspects of it. What do you think the author meant here? What is it about the character that you see? All these thinking processes, my students were not able to really think about what was going on in the stories, and they just sat there looking at me.
No, and you also need to, like, for example, I'm in the automotive industry, and one of the things that you need to know how to do is to be able to read and understand grammar, because one of the big things in my industry is acronyms. Acronyms is a
Right.
very big thing. You have to be able to prognose and dissect and understand ways of how if you don't have these skills, it's like you
Right.
can't work in the industry. Like
You can't. You're always going to be depending on something external in order to make the diagnosis, or to think the thing through.
Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge.
And I don't like to get too sci-fi and too crazy over here, because a lot of times, like, we speculate. But the idea is, in order for us to survive, if we integrate with AI, we integrate with, as we continue to take, because we are kind of integrated already. We have smartphones and we have,
Yes.
but if we integrate effectively and smartly, meaning the fact that we still stay human, but now have a broader and deeper understanding of being able to understand things. Instead of what you're saying is where you're using it as a scapegoat, instead of being able to problem solve and being able to figure things out on your own, you're using an assistant. You're not even using your own mind.
Right.
Like, that already becomes dangerous, because then you don't need the human anymore. It's like, just replace the human with the
Right.
artificial intelligence. Have the whole planet running with AI at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. It's kind of scary.
This is scary. We don't
Yeah.
know. And that, you know what, it's hard, right? Because, again, I'm not a teacher, but I'm sure if you want to talk about this, we definitely can. Where it is definitely something that there are people that are passionate about what they're doing. And then you have where you're spending all this time and then you're being overwhelmed by all this bombardment of all the extra stuff that you need to do, which, quote unquote, you weren't even hired to do, let's just be honest. But then you got to deal with these kids that you're, like, trying to educate, and then they're just like, ChatGPT. That kind of makes you a little, like, I can imagine, like, that kind of makes you a little shitty. It's like, hey, like, I'm dealing with enough crap over here, and then, like, you're not even bothering to process what I'm teaching you here.
It's interesting because I take it so personally when I find out that they've done something like that. It's like almost a betrayal. It's like, I thought you liked me. It has nothing to do with me, and I know this, but being
No, it's just the
human,
curriculum.
I feel like it's a betrayal. Yeah, right. And so
I think,
how do we fix a curriculum that's broken?
look, it's weird because I look at this from a very libertarian perspective, in the sense where I think education should really be a county by county, state by state solution. Meaning that each county, each state has their own education system. Plain and simple. It's like people living in Alabama don't need the same education they have in Montana. People living in California don't need the same education as Michigan. Different industries, different cultures, different seasons, different everything. It's like, I think it's ridiculous. And then it's just lackluster because you're just making everybody sick. Sorry. Sorry, like, it makes me boil. Like, imagine how much it makes you.
Well, I'm in it, and I just try to survive on a daily basis. But I mean, I can only do so much, and if I sit down and if I allow it to boil me, then I'll just go crazy. So I just deal with it the best way that I can.
What do you think, though, like, from your experience as an educator for your entire career, like in regards to the idea of doing it state by state, county by county, instead of having where you've been having it where it's the entire country under one roof.
Well, I mean, New York State does have its own education system, doesn't it? Am I wrong in that? Like, we have the
Well,
New York State Regents exams, and you know, um, I, I think I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but that would probably be good. I'm thinking if I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know.
like,
I
okay,
think it would
I'm from
probably make things a little bit. Go ahead.
like for example, right? I lived in New York, so we have also like for example New Jersey. New Jersey and New York, they're right next to each other, right? But they're two completely
Mm-hmm.
different states. They have two different economies, they have two different governments, they have two different systems, completely different. But to your point, right, New York and New Jersey have very similar education systems. They have pretty, like, with the Regency, and everything's kind of the same. Now, what I'm trying to get at is, right, I understand that they're right next to each other. You could literally drive from Teaneck, New Jersey to New York, like in a car, and it'll take you
Mm-hmm.
less than an hour. But
Mm-hmm.
different communities, different vibes, different, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to get at. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you can't expect everybody to that's the thing too is, right? Can you imagine walking into a gallery and every single painting is exactly the same?
Oh,
That's
that's
how
so
I see our
darn
education
good.
system in this country.
Mm, right. There is a problem there with that. Absolutely. Um, which I guess if you want to think about it, we try to differentiate in terms of helping different students understand the material in different ways. But at the same time, there are still problems. There are still issues. I don't know. I don't know how to solve this issue.
No. No, it's nice to be able to like see it from an outside box and be able to see the different ways of how it works and how it doesn't. And especially when you take somebody that like you have experience and you have a career doing this, it's really it's really hard to be able to tell any individual to change an entire thing. You know, it's like almost impossible for any one person to be able to change an entire one thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this like disillusion of like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make the world better. I love that analogy and I love that philosophy, but I feel like it can be so blindsided and kind of almost in
Mm-hmm.
your imagination at the same time because like you can't really change the world. You can't really you can only do what you can do. You're only one person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. That's why I just always do the best that I can. There's nothing else that can be done at this point. And if you want to think about it, uh, I'm doing the best I can, one student at a time. How about that?
I think you are. And again, like I think the testament to that, and I know I said this earlier, like is especially with being able to write, being able to carve out time to be able to do that, you being able to get your book out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that in and itself is like the most important thing. The fact that like
Mm-hmm.
you put your mind to something and actually made something of it. Like, do you have plans of writing anything else in the future?
I do. I do. I'm actually working on a few different projects. I just signed on to be part of an anthology, which I'm looking forward to. Um,
Hey, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Um, thanks. Yeah. I am working on a second novel that doesn't
Okay.
have anything to do with depression like my first novel, but it is something that is close to my experience. Well, not close to my experience, but I'm taking off of my experience. How about that? As a Haitian American, and I do have a twin sister, so my novel is going to be about twins.
Are you
So
identical?
I'm we are fraternal, but we do look very similar. But we are
That's good
fraternal.
enough. That's good
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
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 So I'm working on that, and also I did have a blog
Ooh.
that was called Cathy's Cross: A Depressive's Positive Perspective, and it was just all about how I wanted to look at the positive perspective of things that had depressed me and the things that had brought me down, and I decided to take that off the internet so that I can take all of those blog posts and turn it into a book slash journal.
That's genius.
So I'm working. Yeah, thanks. So I'm working on those three projects currently. So I'm busy. I
Hey,
try.
see what I mean? Like, you're literally like exactly to the point, right? Where you sometimes have, and I've had this too, where you have like this idea, like especially like a blog, and you put
Mm-hmm.
all your thoughts and everything into it, and then down the road, it turns out it's a great project for something else. You know?
Yeah, right. And I hadn't thought of it like that. But at some point, I was just like, you know what? This would really be good as journal entries, like where somebody looks at it and they can reflect on it. Oops, they
No,
can
you're okay.
reflect on it and then write their own entries. And I thought that it was a really good idea. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Yeah.
I really like. I have this journal. I should be writing more in it, but I got this journal a while
Mm-hmm.
back. It was written by this business coach, where, and this is the reason why I love this thing so much. Instead of just having where like the stupid day to day crap and whatever, it like just gives you like just stuff to write down. Like they'll say like, what's something right now in your life that's inspiring you right now?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you just start writing, and then you got a whole paragraph.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff just gets your brain moving, and I think like you don't need to like go through a whole query of like 50 questions to figure out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think like there's
Mm-hmm.
ways of like
Mm-hmm.
rooting that stuff out and just get it written down so like you could physically see it and come
Right.
back to it. Maybe even on your phone, like I have an iPhone, like you have
Yeah.
notes, you just open it up and just write it quickly
Yeah.
down.
And it helps you, not only helps you figure the stuff out in your brain, but it helps you process your feelings about certain things. And if you read a prompt that says, what's inspiring you right now, you may not have thought about that at all that day. Maybe you're having a really crappy day, and then all of a sudden you see the prompt, what inspires you, and now you're not having a crappy day because now you're thinking about something that makes you happy, and you've just turned your negative day into something that could be really positive. So that's really important.
I have to say, you are just full of surprises in the best way possible because I love
Yay.
that. Because the cool thing is like every artist has a story, but there's some that have grit. There's some that are raw. There's some of them like give you like that avant garde, like noir, and
Mm-hmm.
you're definitely filling all of those boxes, 100%.
Oh yeah, thank
Of
you.
course.
Yay.
I was gonna ask you. I know you got a website. I know you got social media. I know your book is on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon. Where is the best place to find you?
So I just got a website.
Yes.
So I've been working on this website for many months, and it's actually CathelinaDuvert.com. And on that website, you can see, what my you could purchase my book from there, and there are also other things that I created based on characters from my book. You can purchase that there as well. You can learn all about me there. I also have like links to other podcasts that I've done. So yeah, CathelinaDuvert.com.
Love that. And I did notice on your website that there is an option to get an autograph copy.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Yeah, and that would be directly from me. You can't get that one from Amazon.
Mm-mm. You know what I'm gonna do? I usually put these up in a Substack. I will put a link if you want an autograph copy of the box. Is that right? The box?
Yeah, the
In the
box.
Substack. Yeah. So anybody that gets the emails or checks out the
Thank
post,
you.
you'll be able to get an autograph. Come on, you get one for Cathelina, like, hey, you get that John
Yes.
Hancock on there. Oh, it's beautiful.
I love that. Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
my pleasure. Listen, I have to say, thank you so much for coming on and, like, just being open and just... It's hard to talk about this, like, I've definitely struggled with this, you've definitely struggled with, and just being able to have that awareness, especially, like, with education and being able to write and figuring out things in your life, like, this is important. It is. It's really important to open up about these things.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
My pleasure. Well, listen, to anybody out there, if you want to check out more of Lost in the Groove, you can find us at Lost in the Groove Pod. And, of course, you can find us everywhere, including Rumble and WeWorld. So with that, we'll catch you on the next one. All right. Peace out.